Part 5. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 41. Just when Xiao Mo was grinding his teeth, speechless, and puzzled, Yilin hides in the dark. Only did one thing. Call up. Soon, the call was connected. Fortunately for Yilin, Mo Mengmeng finally understood what the overall situation is most important means. She was finally willing to add Yilin to the whitelist. In other words, you no longer need to enter the cumbersome password and sonic password when calling Molly. The moment the communication was connected, Molly was surprised and delighted, and asked loudly, "Is it done? Is it over? So soon?" Yilin's face was expressionless, and she didn't bother to correct the ambiguity hidden in Molly's words. "I feel something is wrong." How to say? Yilin closed her eyes. "I feel," the process went so smoothly. "Are you not going well?" Molly almost wanted to say whether there was something wrong with your brain. But as soon as Molly thought of Yilin smiling and saying "Mo Mengmeng," she suddenly swallowed back the stupid words. Yilin asked back, "Imagine now that all of Xiao Mo's bodyguards are dead, the door of his house is ajar, and there is no movement inside. I always feel that a group of welcoming ladies will run out. Do you think there is no problem with this situation?" It doesn't seem right to say that. Help me check if this house has a self-destruct system. Do you think everyone plants bombs in their homes like you do?" When Molly heard this, she almost spit out the coffee in her stomach. But the matter was so important that Molly obediently hacked into the Xiao family's AI system and checked the entire AI program as quickly as possible. Not at all. Poison gas. Nor. Are there any traps on the floor? Where's the ceiling? Is there anything unusual about the city's alarm system? Yilin actually spoke at an extremely fast speed and put forward 22 possible dangerous hypotheses in succession. Snapped. No one saw that in Molly's room, the immersive headset on her face fell onto her lap. Molly's expression completely froze, and she was speechless. Could it be that this guy has a persecutory delusion? Fortunately, Yilin finally did not come up with the 23rd hypothesis of murder. While Yilin was arguing with Molly, 2 minutes passed quietly. Molly glanced at the time, her expression changed, and her tone became urgent. "No. The time is coming. If you continue to control this AI defense system, it will leave traces of invasion. Get out of there now, the alarm will sound soon." At the end, Molly explained with some reluctance, "After all, the equipment I am using now is too crude. If it were in my territory, this AI defense system could sing a song of 18 touches in minutes." The tone was indignant. "Oh, you actually know about 18 touches?" Yilin was a little surprised. This was another side of Molly that he didn't know. "Okay, write it down." After Yilin was silent for a few seconds, she suddenly smiled. "It doesn't matter, let it ring." "Let him ring? What do you mean?" "Just let the alarm sound." The shrill ringing of bells rang through the night sky. The ringtones are loud. Yilin hid in the darkness, motionless, her expression unchanged. Drop. Suddenly, the piercing alarm bell stopped. The surroundings were calm again. In the distance, Molly noticed changes in the AI defense system, which was a bit surprising. The other party actually turned off the alarm system? Could it be that Xiao Mo had discovered you a long time ago? Yilin chuckled. "Be more confident and remove the word could it be." Molly. In this way, Yilin understood. Xiao Mo is indeed an old fox. And he's a crazy old fox who doesn't care about anything. Next, remember what I tell you. Don't ask why, just do it. Just help me once. Located in the underground secret room of the mansion. Xiao Mo turned off the alarm with a look of hatred. He already knew that the AI defense system had been hacked. No one knows that this mansion actually has two completely different AI defense programs. The first set of AI has been hacked. The control center of the second set is in the underground secret room. This second system is not connected to the city LAN, nor is it connected to Tianzhu 1, so in theory, it cannot be remotely invaded. Did that kid run away? Xiaomo's expression became more and more gloomy. If Yilin leaves, everything he has done tonight will be in vain. 16 guards are equivalent to dying in vain. Want to leave? Xiaomo sneered, rubbed the crutch at hand, and fell into deep thought. No matter what, Xiaomo wants him to die. No matter what means you use. Xiaomo gritted his teeth and was about to risk everything and use other back UPS, but Yilin walked out of the darkness on the surveillance screen. Huh. Xiaomo's eyes suddenly widened. One person. One knife. The corpses crossed the ground and walked step by step to the ajar door. Push the door open and enter. The moment she entered the Xiao family's mansion, Yilin couldn't help but feel a sense of emotion. It's truly a mansion. The ground was covered with a layer of soft animal fur. Above the head, retro chandeliers cast dappled and gorgeous light and shadow on the ground. The walls are covered with ancient paintings. Of course, Yilin couldn't tell the truth from the lie. The rotating staircase, climbing up the stairs, is magnificent and dazzling. In the corner of the hall, a precious antique vinyl record player that has long been out of print plays melodious and peaceful music as the disc rotates. Not to mention anything else, just the large piece of fur carpet Yilin stepped on was enough to show how rich the Xiao family was. In this era, any mammal with legs basically belongs to the category of rare and protected animals. Even the chickens, ducks, cattle, and sheep that were often put on the dining table in the last century are rare in number due to difficulty in breeding. Otherwise, Yilin would not have eaten synthetic nutritional fast food for more than half a year in order to save money. In other words, this large piece of pure natural blanket under your feet is very expensive, very expensive. Yilin spent about 10 seconds looking at the mansion. Boom. The door of the Xiao family behind him suddenly closed tightly, airtight. Crash. All windows are blocked by alloy plates. At this moment, the luxurious Xiao family mansion became a prison. Yilin didn't need to look back to know what situation she was in. His expression remained unchanged and he waited quietly. The lights above and on the walls suddenly dimmed. But not to the point of darkness. But actually, Yilin hoped that all these dazzling lights would be turned off. After all, his shadow follower can be most effective in the dark. When the lights dimmed, Xiaomo's figure appeared on the surrounding walls. In an instant, there were dozens of Xiaomo, looking at Yilin from different angles. Xiaomo's eyes were filled with hatred, and he gritted his teeth and said, "How dare you come in? I'm afraid you're impatient to wait." Yilin raised her head and looked at dozens of Xiaomo. Anyway, everyone has come in, the doors and windows are sealed, and the entire mansion has instantly turned into a steel cage. It is also Yilin's grave. No one can escape. Thinking of this, Xiaomo was not in a hurry and asked calmly, "Aren't you afraid of death?" He. Yilin chuckled, as the master, "Shouldn't you say, 'Welcome now'?" Xiaomo's expression froze. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 42. He suddenly found that he couldn't see through Yilin. Xiaomo couldn't tell through the screen for a moment whether Yilin was bluffing. Or maybe he has a trump card. Xiaomo witnessed with his own eyes Yilin, like the god of death in the darkness, quietly killing all the bodyguards. He still can't see through the deep meaning hidden in Yilin's movements. On the screen, Yilin only did 3 things. Close behind. Take out the knife and wipe your throat. Put away the knife and leave. Although the image sent back by Xiao Yi could clearly capture Yilin's face, due to the damage to the central nervous system, the fighting process was intermittent and it was impossible to see clearly. Therefore, Xiao Mo couldn't understand Yilin's ability. What Xiao Mo didn't know was that the feeling of sense of presence can only be experienced by those who have experienced it personally. Through video, you can't notice the change in the sense of presence at all. Xiao Mo had several thoughts flashing through his mind. But after all, Xiao Mo has experienced many storms and waves, and he is not an ordinary person. He really wanted Yilin to die and be buried with Henry Zhang. For Xiao Mo, Yilin is the real burial object, and the others are just accessories. But Xiao Mo didn't want Yilin to die so easily. He originally wanted Yilin to die in despair and pain. How to make a person despair and miserable enough? That is to hold Yilin high and then let him fall to hell. That's why Xiao Mo allowed Yilin to kill all the bodyguards. Let Yilin's heart swell, and finally let Yilin die in this mansion. By the way, I also helped Xiao Mo. The bodyguards dug up from the underground world should also be buried with them. Thinking of this, Xiao Mo smiled coldly. You can laugh now. Why did you kill Xiao Yang? Yilin didn't want to explain too much, and just chuckled. I told you, you don't understand. In short, he deserves to die. Xiao Mo, you deserve to die too. Yilin said silently in her heart. Ha 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 ha, Xiao Mo suddenly looked crazy and laughed loudly. Xiao Yang deserves to die. Xiao Yang deserves to die. Xiao Yang deserves to die. He just kept repeating the same question over and over again. I don't know who I'm asking. Yilin raised her head and let Xiao Mo laugh for a while. A good while. Then Yilin said, the door is closed, where is the dog? It's time to let the dog out, right? In an instant, Xiao Mo's crazy expression froze on the screen. Ahem. Right now. There was a dry cough on the stairs. In an instant, the hair all over Yilin's body exploded. With his mental attribute of 5.6, he didn't even notice anyone on the second floor before the coughing sound. A man wearing a white vest, with muscles as strong as steel bars, stood on the second floor at some point. I saw that he had a blunt head and a shallow scar on his left eye. He looked to be in his early 30s, and his whole body exuded an aura as majestic as a mountain. But there was a trace of embarrassment on the man's face. I saw him smile bitterly. Boy, your words make my appearance very embarrassing. As he spoke, the muscular man jumped down from the second floor and landed firmly not far from Yilin. The moment the muscular man landed, Yilin seemed to feel the whole floor shake slightly. Call. After seeing the muscular man appear, he finally let out a long sigh of relief, and then took a big breath. I had been holding my breath for a long time and almost suffered from hypoxia. The muscular man glanced at Yilin with a strange expression. After a moment, he couldn't help but ask, what are you holding your breath for? Breathe the fresh air, Yilin said seriously. In fact, after seeing the muscular man appear without any antivirus equipment, Yilin temporarily ruled out the possibility that the muscular man would attack with poison gas. Be safe. There is always nothing wrong. Haha, the muscular man grinned, showing 2 rows of neat teeth. He raised his head and said loudly to Xiao Mo, who was peeking in the dark, old friend, do you remember what you promised me? Xiao Mo's frozen expression changed again. Reluctantly, with a hint of anger. The muscular man kindly reminded, old friend, you can rest assured that if you ask me to take action, it will definitely be worth your money. This guy and I are the same kind of people. What? For a long time. Xiao Mo finally made up his mind and gritted his teeth and said, okay. Then, it's settled. The muscular man smiled happily. This is a big deal. How could you not be happy? The muscular man put his hands in front of him and assumed a boxer's stance. In an instant, his fists were shrouded in a faint light. Hiss. Without any warning, the muscular man punched Yilin in the direction. The two of them were clearly separated by nearly 10 meters. But the muscular man still punched. Yilin's pupils shrank, and a strong wind pressure actually brushed against the edge of his clothes. Snapped. Behind Yilin's head, an invisible device suddenly exploded, sparks sizzling out. That's surveillance equipment. At the same time, half of Xiaomo's image on the wall was extinguished. The muscular man followed suit and punched twice in the other two directions in front of Yilin. Every time a punch is struck, there is an invisible wave that disappears in the air and flashes by. Snap. Electric sparks also exploded in the other two directions. The images on the surrounding walls were completely extinguished and turned back into ordinary walls. Apostle. Yilin slowly uttered two words in her mouth. Xiao Mo is just an ordinary person. He is not qualified to intervene in our disputes. He is not even qualified to watch. The muscular man had a very casual expression, smiled slightly, and did not take action immediately. There are too few apostles in the city, and I haven't killed anyone of the same kind with my own hands for a long time. Let me introduce myself, Zhenqiang. As the name suggests, I am very, very strong. LV11, second level apostle. LV11. In other words, he is a senior apostle who has reached the 11th floor. Yilin took a deep breath and did not follow Zhenqiang's example and introduce herself. From Yilin's point of view, it makes no sense. Can I ask a question? Yilin clenched the knife in her hand. This was Yilin's only support. Okay, Zhenqiang shrugged with an indifferent expression. Xiao Mo asked you to take action, at what price? In Yilin's view, the only thing the apostle desires is power, the power to climb higher in the tower. Whether it is money or power, everything you possess in the real world will disappear once it perishes in the other world. Zhenqiang smiled, it's okay. I'm in charge of killing and burying him. He paid all his property, which is fair. After all, his opponent is also an apostle. After a pause, Zhenqiang added, of course, I also observed you in the video. Your skills seem to be good at assassination. Under the light, your skills should not have much effect. Although money is dispensable to me, since this life is quite easy, it doesn't hurt to have a little more money to enjoy it. Zhenqiang is indeed the senior apostle of LV11, and he can see the weakness of Yilin's skills at a glance. You have also seen my skill, it is fist gang. In Zhenqiang's eyes, Yilin seems to have become a piece of fish waiting to be slaughtered on the chopping board. Instead of killing him immediately, he enthusiastically boasted about his skills. Sudden. Yilin activated the skill without any warning. Psychic shock. At the moment when the skill was activated, Zhenqiang's tone suddenly stopped, his eyes became distracted, and he fell into a coma. Yilin's psychic energy value was only a little over 300 points. Mind shock can only be used once. The other party is right, they follow you like a shadow, and in this environment, they cannot have the desired effect. Zhenqiang's level is much higher than Yilin's. Although Yilin has experience before rebirth, in a short period of time, experience cannot make up for the power gap between the two. The number of times I have experienced the other world, the difference is too big. The opponent definitely has more than one skill, fist gang. Moreover, the opponent's strength attribute is absolutely terrifyingly high. If Yilin wanted to kill the opponent, a LV11 second level apostle, the only way was to take him by surprise and directly use his skills to defeat him. Only then can there be a possibility of winning. The moment the other party fell into a dazed state, Yilin took a few steps and came to Zhenqiang. Using the most confident angle, he swiped the knife towards Zhenqiang's neck. This is the killing blow. Please vote for the new book issue and collected wonderful preview of the next chapter. Please close the door after dark. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 43. The timing and angle of Yi Lin's sword were refined and impeccable. Almost as soon as Zhenqiang fell into a dazed state, Yi Lin used blood jasmine to pass between Zhenqiang's neck. Ding! But the strange thing is that the scene of tearing flesh and blood and splattering blood did not appear as expected. In mid-air, a strange color flashed in Yi Lin's eyes. Zhenqiang's neck was actually a bright metallic color. The knife was like cutting on an iron plate. If I had to describe it, it would feel like being cut on Xiao Yi's neck. Yi Lin's heart moved, her expression darkened, her body twisted in mid-air, and she was about to change places and swing the second sword. But in an instant, Yi Lin was about to swing the knife in mid-air, but stopped abruptly. At this moment, this second, Yi Lin had a premonition that even if he pushed the tip of the knife forward, all will die. Will definitely die. Yi Lin raised her head and met Zhenqiang's teasing eyes. He actually recovered from his dizzy state. Yi Lin's pupils shrank almost to the shape of needlepoints. She backed away suddenly, and distanced herself from Zhenqiang. "Ha, no wonder you are so confident." A faint sneer appeared at the corner of Zhenqiang's mouth. "You actually have such a trump card." Yi Lin held the dagger tightly and stood quietly 10 meters away from Zhenqiang without saying a word. Even though he had a dagger made of star steel, for him who was not good at melee combat, he would not be able to compete with an apostle with defensive skills. It was too early to meet. He remembered that thing he asked Molly to do earlier, and silently counted the time in his mind. Zhenqiang twisted his neck, and there was only a faint mark on his neck where the blood jasmine had scratched it. A trace of blood slowly seeped out from the mark on the neck. Zhenqiang smiled slightly and said, "In addition to fist gang, I also master a defensive skill. Skin hardening. With your power, you can't break my defense at all." Yi Lin. Zhenqiang clenched his fists and made a crisp popping sound. He looked at Yi Lin with a trace of greed that could not be concealed in his expression, and said slowly, "An auxiliary skill that is biased towards assassination. The other one turns out to be a rare control skill. The job this time is not a loss." Zhenqiang seemed to have finished warming up. He pointed at Yi Lin and grinned, showing a confident smile. "If it had been anyone else, maybe with the combination of your two skills, they would have died in an unknown way. It's a pity that you met I. My skills fist gang and skin hardening are the most suitable skills for close combat. You have no chance of winning." "So?" Zhenqiang raised his head and smiled gently at Yi Lin. "Do you think there is still a need to struggle?" Yi Lin remained silent. What the other party said is true. His strength attribute is too low. Although the blood jasmine in the hand is made of the extraterrestrial element star steel, it is not a spirit-possessed weapon after all, and it has no damage bonus to the apostles. To put it bluntly, Yi Lin couldn't even break through the opponent's defense. After careful analysis, Zhenqiang's skin hardening should be a skill that continuously consumes spiritual energy, and should not be as exaggerated as a permanent passive skill. And Quan Gang is also an additional status type. If Yi Lin guessed correctly, it should be the type that increases the attack distance. It's a bit troublesome. Yi Lin used the shortest time to analyze Zhenqiang's skills in detail. Raising her head, Yi Lin chuckled, "It's a little difficult for me to kill you now." A little. Zhenqiang seemed to have heard some joke, showing an incredulous expression. "I'm really curious, where does your crazy self-confidence come from?" In Zhenqiang's eyes, although Yi Lin's skills are weird and unpredictable, no matter what, the difference in levels and attributes are too big. Yi Lin is like a prawn jumping in a frying pan. No matter how hard he jumps, he will end up with nothing. If you can be boiled to death, you can't escape from Zhenqiang's clutches. Seeing that Yi Lin didn't speak, Zhenqiang twisted his neck and slowly walked towards Yi Lin with a crackling sound. While walking, he said, "Since you have no objection, I'm here to get the loot." "Hey, I'm looking forward to seeing what skills I can get from your box. To be honest, your control skills are quite good and suit me. Zhen Qiang's tone did not conceal the naked greed. Isn't the reason why the apostles continue to have disputes because of the lottery process of killing the apostles and then dropping them into boxes? As long as you keep killing apostles, you will gradually become stronger. The evolution of an apostle was originally a bloody road that involved countless corpses to reach the top, etc. Yilin flipped her palm and put the blood jasmine into the storage space. Then he spread his palms to show that he had no weapons in his hands. Zhen Qiang paused in his steps and his expression froze. Are you naive enough to think that I will let you go if you beg for mercy now? Zhen Qiang sneered, thinking that Yilin wanted to surrender. What's the benefit of me letting you go? Can you give me the Xiao family's property? Or is it your skills? Yilin narrowed her eyes slightly and smiled. I wonder if you have heard of this sentence. Last words. Okay, you tell me. Zhen Qiang seemed very generous. We have been separated for 3 days, and we look at each other with admiration. Oh, Zhen Qiang couldn't help laughing when he heard this. Don't you want to say in your next sentence, 30 years to the east of Hedong, 30 years to the west of Hexi, don't bully young people into poverty, right? No. The smile on Yilin's face did not diminish, and she slowly put her hand on her chest. Zhen Qiang's eyelids twitched slightly, feeling that this posture seemed inexplicably familiar. It doesn't take 30 years, just wait for me, just 1 minute. Enter, the other world. Zhen Qiang's pupils shrank suddenly and he punched Yilin directly in the head. In an instant, the fist wind was like an invisible cannonball, shortening the distance between the two. Boom. On the wall behind him, a clear fist mark was left. But Yilin has disappeared where she was. Zhen Qiang gritted his teeth and unexpectedly, chose to enter the other world at this time. He is an apostle himself, and he also knows that every apostle has several hours of preparation when he receives the call for the next trial. Because no matter who they are, there is no guarantee that they will survive the next trial. During these few hours of preparation, most apostles use it to prepare for their deaths. Is it a coincidence? Or was it planned in advance? Zhen Qiang counted the time silently in his heart, but his expression changed. If it's a coincidence, it just means that this kid is a little lucky. But if it was premeditated? So what if you survive the trial? Do you really think that you can shorten the gap between us by going through one more trial? You are too naive. After Zhen Qiang figured this out, he closed his eyes where he was. 58, 57, 56, 55. After a minute, you will see the result. Zhen Qiang didn't panic. He has full confidence in his own strength. Let's not talk about whether the kid can come out of the other world alive. Even if the kid really survives 1 minute later, then let that kid die again. What's the harm? Thinking of this, Zhen Qiang looked at the place where Yilin disappeared, with a cruel smile on his lips. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Xueshi. Chapter 44. When Yilin opened her eyes again, there was mist all around. The withered branches seemed to have turned into mottled and strange shadows in the mist. Daytime. Thick fog. Grove. One person. Yilin used the fastest speed to understand her situation. Yilin opened her palms and carefully distinguished the skin color and texture of her palms. It's your own hand, it can't be wrong. In other words, isn't this a cheating mode like role-playing? Yilin looked down and realized that the attire she was wearing was not the same sweatshirt she wore when she sneaked into Xiao's house. Yilin was wearing a close-fitting, soft white dress that was slightly stained with wind dust. Outside of the white dress, she was actually wearing a waist-length robe and cape that was as black as ink. On Yilin's feet, she was actually wearing a pair of straw sandals stained with mud. Although they are straw sandals, the weaving technique is extremely delicate. There is no discomfort at all when worn on the feet. On the contrary, they give Yulin a comfortable feeling that fits the solace of her feet. Huh. Yulin suddenly noticed that there was a knife hanging on her waist. Scabbard. The empty scabbard. As the name suggests, there is no knife in the scabbard. Plot mode. Yulin quickly understood her situation. Before the plot started, Yulin immediately opened the Apostle panel and gently poked his finger on the Apocalypse Night module. In an instant, Yulin was immersed in the mental space of the module. Yulin has experience and knows that in the spiritual space, spiritual energy will continue to be consumed. So after entering the mental space, Yulin didn't waste time and directly dragged out the psychic shock skill and stuffed it into the shattering skill ball. With the last experience, Yulin is also familiar with how to edit mod, and the operation is proficient, without any ambiguity. You are an experienced driver now. It would be better to go faster. This operation requires 1000 chaos points. Yes/no? Yo. The service is very considerate, right? Yulin quickly clicked yes. After Yulin made her choice, the small ball of light formed by psychic shock slowly integrated into the skill slot. The dim skill ball lights up again. Consumption of chaos value 1000. Remaining chaos value, 425. Psychic shock is upgraded to Disaster Ridden. Disaster Ridden. Level 1 star. Consumption 200 spiritual energy points. Restrictions: you must say "let the world feel pain" from now on loudly before you can activate the skill. Effect: it can cause a single target within sight to fall into a random negative state, confusion, slowness, dizziness, fear, imprisonment, charm, blinding, etc. There is a 30% chance of causing the target to fall into more than one random negative state. Skill effect affected by the mental attributes and the target's will attributes. Explanation: if you love, say it out loud. This. The moment she saw the effect of this skill, Yulin was quite surprised. Originally, control skills were extremely rare among the apostles. And Yulin's upgraded Disaster Ridden is no longer just described in terms of control skills. This is a nightmare. Even 4 years in the future, in Yulin's impression, there are very few such shameless skills. Use a little imagination to picture the following. Yulin uses disaster on the target. Then the person who was tricked first spun around in circles 360 degrees, chaos. Then he stayed in place with a face of confusion, imprisonment. Then I want to escape in slow motion, delay. Then I was dumbfounded again, dizzy. After experiencing the above-mentioned round of mental torture, the other party turned around and shouted shyly, "Master, how are you, charm?" Terrible. Yulin's face was expressionless and she slowly uttered 4 words. To describe it in one sentence. Call someone to get pregnant, stare at someone to get pregnant. And this is only a 1-star skill. If we continue to upgrade. Yulin observed 3 seconds of silence in advance for the enemies who would be hit by this trick in the future. I don't know who is so unlucky. The terrifying effect of this upgraded skill is enough for Yulin to ignore the insignificant skill restrictions. Although it feels a bit shameful to shout before activating the skill, it won't lose a piece of meat. The more terrifying skills will have harsh restrictions. This is normal. Not important either. Yulin shrank the broken module in front of her and took a brief look. As the second skill ball lights up, a faint line continues behind the disaster-haunted skill, disappearing into the depths of the dark void. The overall outline of the module cannot be clearly seen yet. Like the vast sea of stars, Yulin can only observe one constellation now. Yulin spent her chaos points to upgrade her skills and then retreated from the mental space. The remaining chaos value was not enough to upgrade any skill, so Yulin could only give up for now. Yulin opened the Apostle panel. Yulin, ID, 1010. Health 100%, cannot be quantified specifically, deducted as a percentage based on the apostle's physical strength. Psychic energy value 560, affected by mental attributes. Module Apocalypse Knight, damaged. Level LV4, First Order Apostle. Strength 2.0, positively related to muscle strength, physical fitness, explosive power, and recovery power. Agility 3.3, positively related to shooting speed, reaction speed, flexibility, and movement speed. Spirit 5.6, positively related to memory, imagination, calculation power, Chinook value, accuracy, perception, casting speed, and Chinook recovery speed. Will 7.1, the embodiment of willpower, positively related to various types of resistance. Lucky 3.9, extremely difficult to improve under normal circumstances, please cherish it. Charm 2.4, extremely difficult to improve under normal circumstances, handsome and cherished. Skills follow you like a shadow, be haunted by disasters. Reinforcement none. However, despite upgrading her skills, Yulin did not relax. He has not forgotten that in the real world, there is a powerful enemy watching him. Only by improving her strength as much as possible in this trial in the other world can Yulin escape from the Xiao family in the real world. I hope Molly won't have a bad temper at the critical moment. Yulin also has a backup plan in the real world. So, don't panic. Yulin raised her head and looked at the sky. The world seemed to be shrouded in a thick layer of thick fog. It was impossible to distinguish the sun and moon, and could only vaguely tell that it was daytime. Yulin subconsciously held the empty scabbard with her left hand and glanced down, a deep thought flashing across her brows. Could it be? Yulin raised his eyebrows, reached into the storage space with his right hand, and took out the blood jasmine. Clang! The dark red short knife sank neatly into the scabbard at his waist. It was just right. The scabbard that appeared on Yulin's waist seemed to be tailor-made for blood jasmine. Its shape and length matched perfectly. If it was shorter, it would be fuller, and if it was longer, it would be looser. Haha, it seems that the tower has even arranged the saber for me in this plot. Yulin chuckled, not too surprised. It is not surprising that that will is omniscient and omnipotent, and can achieve this. Ah! Shortly after Yulin put the blood jasmine into the scabbard, a shrill scream came through the thick fog. Ah! Yulin smiled instead of being surprised. The plot is here. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 45. Yulin followed the direction of the scream and groped in the thick fog. The thickness of the fog is beyond ordinary. The field of vision in the thick fog was less than 10 meters. The soil underfoot was very moist and had a bit of a rancid smell. Click, click, click. The moist soil is covered with dead leaves, and when you step on them, they make a crisp sound in the mist. Soon, a vague figure appeared in front of Yulin. In the fog, ahead, a petite and thin figure rushed towards Yulin while screaming. Yulin's expression remained unchanged, her left hand resting on her waist. The other hand is holding the knife. It can be unsheathed and kill at any time. The panicked figure broke away the fog in front of him. It wasn't until she was a few meters away from Yulin that Yulin could barely see the true face of the figure. It was a dirty-looking little girl who looked about 11 or 12 years old. She was wearing grey coarse linen clothes and had unkempt hair. She looked like a refugee. But when the little girl raised her head, her dirty face was dotted with two big, clear eyes, bright and clear. While Yulin was looking at the little girl also saw Yulin and said intermittently, "Sir, hurry up, hurry up. There is a ghost." Yo! Is this how it unfolds? Yulin looked calm and smiled slightly. Ghost? Where is it? As we all know, in the trial mode, you must enter the plot to trigger the mission. The biggest difference between story mode and other modes is that if you want to get a higher rating in story mode, you must explore the story. The kind that digs you to death. The deeper you dig into the plot, the higher the difficulty of the entire level will be, but the higher the evaluation will be after you finally clear the level. As the saying goes, the greater the risk, the greater the reward. How to choose between risks and benefits, and make the right choice at every step in the plot mode, is enough to give every apostle a headache. Back to business. When Yilin asked the little girl where the ghost was with a calm expression, the little girl had a look of horror on her face. Yes, but... Yilin comforted her softly, it's okay, where is the ghost? The little girl bit her lower lip slightly, tears welling up in her big eyes. After a few seconds, she shook her head desperately, no, sir. That's a man-eating ghost. How do you know ghosts can eat people? Because, my father was eaten by a ghost. The little girl pointed to the depths of the mist, gritted her teeth, and looked pitiful. She cried deeply, her eyes were bloodshot, and she looked red and pitiful. Just looking at the little girl's big eyes that seemed to be talking, people couldn't help but ignore her dirty face. Walk. Yilin calmly followed the direction pointed by the little girl and went deep into the fog without any fear on her face. Sir, this. The little girl was a little anxious and seemed to still want to stop him, but seeing that Yilin was unstoppable, she could only stamp her feet and keep up with Yilin's pace. Thick fog. Dead leaf forest. A man with a short sword hanging from his waist and a thin girl walked through it one behind the other. Hiss. Quack. From time to time, there are some weird noises coming from the deep woods, sometimes insects chirping, sometimes crows chirping. The originally ordinary things, shrouded in fog, have become a bit weird out of thin air. After walking hundreds of steps, Yilin paused, turned around and asked, is it this direction? The little girl bit her finger, and the whites of her eyes turned a little red. She carefully determined the direction, then slightly adjusted Yilin's position, and stretched out her finger, my lord, this way. But lord, those are man-eating monsters, ghosts, it's impossible for humans to fight them. Oh, there is no invincible thing in this world. Ghosts can also have weaknesses. Yilin smiled slightly and did not look back. My name is Yilin, what's yours? Master Yilin, my name is, Xiaoi. Yilin's breathing suddenly stopped. Then he slowly turned his head and glanced at Xiaoi, with a gentle smile flashing across his face, it's, which Yi? Sir, it's still Yi. Xiao Yi shrank her neck, with a bit of timidity in her eyes. Oh, that's a pretty good name, where do you live? My home is to the west of Giwu Mountain. Xiaoi pointed in a certain direction. Giwu Mountain, Yilin repeated the name and thought about it carefully. Seeing this, Xiaoi's tone became a little more surprised, did sir come from outside Giwu Mountain? That's right, haha. Yilin was non-committal. Xiaoi covered her mouth in surprise, how is it possible? Under Yilin's questioning, Xiaoi also revealed the reason for her surprise. It turns out that the place where Yilin is now is called Giwu Mountain. The origin of this name is unknown. Xiaoi has lived in Giwu Mountain since she was a child and is familiar with everything in this mountain. In Giwu Mountain, no matter day or night, it is shrouded in a thick layer of fog. The closer to Giwu Mountain, the thinner the fog becomes, and the further away from Giwu Mountain, the thicker the fog becomes. When we arrived at the very edge of Giwu Mountain, we were surrounded by a layer of thick black fog, as dark as ink. Xiaoi also said that the reason why she was surprised that Yilin came from outside Giwu Mountain was that it had been passed down from generation to generation in their village that Giwu Mountain was a cursed place. No one can leave Giwu Mountain, and no one can enter from outside Giwu Mountain. There was once someone who did not believe in evil and wanted to leave Giwu Mountain, so he plunged into the black mist. After, there is no after. People who entered the black mist never appeared again. No bones remain. As time goes by, no one wants to leave this mountain again. The circle of black mist on the border of Giwu Mountain has also been rumored to be more and more mysterious, and it is called the man-eating ghost fog. Is the map boundary? After listening to Xiaoai's description, Yilin had a preliminary impression of the map. At this moment, a strange sound came from the front of the thick fog. Puchi, click, suck, suck, suck. It sounded like someone was eating a head. Moving on to the prelude, a figure squatted on the ground with his back to Yilin and Xiaoyi, shoulders shrugged. Xiaoai, who was behind Yilin, took a deep breath. Ghost, ghost, ghost. Fool. The figure squatting on the ground turned his head suddenly. An inarticulate sound came from his mouth. Those eyes were as red as blood, shining with an evil light in the thick fog. I saw 2 rows of sharp teeth in the ghost's mouth, and there was still a lot of flesh and blood left in the gaps between the sharp teeth. A trace of blood was sliding down its mouth. This is ghost. However, in Yilin's opinion, it is more appropriate to call him a monster rather than a ghost. As we all know, there are no ghosts in the real world. The ghost in front of me is similar to a monster, it's just a name, not important. Yilin's spiritual power was at full value and she had 2 practical skills in hand, so she didn't panic at all. In front of the evil ghost, there seemed to be a bloody figure lying, with his chest rising and falling slightly. Still alive? Thinking of this, Yilin immediately pulled out the knife. In order not to affect the reading experience, individual chapters will not be published. The recommended positions for next week are not very good, maybe because of insufficient results. Each of your collections, recommendations, and comments is the motivation for Xiaobai to continue writing. I would like to thank you all for your support. Please collect and vote. Positive comments welcome. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 46. The moment the evil ghost discovered Yilin and Xiaoyi, he gave up the food at his feet and turned his head sharply. He aimed his eyes and sharp teeth at Yilin and Xiaoyi. It seems it finds the new food in front of it more tempting. You stand back. Yilin lowered her head and whispered. Sir, let's run away. That's a ghost. It's impossible for a human to defeat a ghost. Why? Xiao, I heard someone say that ghosts are immortal. Unless you are a legendary ghost hunter who masters a unique ghost killing technique, you can completely kill ghosts. Otherwise, ghosts are immortal. Ghost hunter? Yilin held the dagger in front of her body to defend herself against the evil spirits that were about to attack her. Without looking back, she casually asked, what is a ghost hunter? Xiao, I whispered, haven't you heard of it? There is a kind of people in the legend. They wear black cloaks with the word kill behind them. They wear ghost-killing knives and wander around places where ghosts are. Only a ghost hunter can truly kill ghosts. Suddenly, Xiao Yi looked at Yilin's back and said in a surprised tone, huh? Sir, this clothes, looks a bit like the legendary ghost hunter. Huh, really? Yilin pondered for a moment, but she didn't expect that she played such a role in the plot. Ghost. Ghost hunter. While Yilin was thinking and gathering information about the plot, the evil ghost in front of him, grinding his teeth and showing a fierce look, finally couldn't help but pounce towards Yilin. In an instant, the ghost's nails stretched out a few centimeters strangely and turned into sharp claws. There was no flashy movement at all, it just ripped straight at Yilin's eyeballs. Yilin turned sideways, his eyes flashed, and the blood jasmine in his hand rose from bottom to top, as if splitting the mist in front of him in two. He heard a scoff, and the ghost's arm was cut off by Yilin. Phew! Black blood spurted out from the severed arm, but the ghost seemed to feel no pain at all. He let out a low roar from his throat, and his other hand turned into sharp claws again, and continued to kill Yilin relentlessly. There is no reason. Yilin dodged the evil spirit's attack again, turned around and swung another knife. The attack is haphazard. Laugh. The other arm was broken off. Yilin chuckled. Let's try that one. Yilin's footsteps were nimble, and although she was only using a simplified version of the ancient martial arts of the Ming dynasty, the dragon walk, it was more than enough to deal with irrational evil spirits. While circling the evil ghost, Yilin stared at the evil ghost's eyes without blinking, paying attention to the evil ghost's sight. This ghost is very different from the ethereal ghost described in ancient Sci-fi legends. Visible. Touchable. Can cut. Can fight. Can be deceived. It's not much different from the monsters in the game. Yilin, who has a lot of experience in fighting monsters in the future, quickly figured out the methods of ghosts. One sentence to describe. Unremarkable. In the mist, Yilin silently turned on "Follow me." Happy circles around the ghost. The ghost lost its arms and was bleeding with black blood. Its attack method was more monotonous, and it only knew how to bite Yilin with its head. But there was flesh and blood crawling on the ghost's shoulders, and it seemed to be recovering at an extremely fast speed. A type that can heal itself? Immortal. The moment the ghost's eyes turned around, Yilin had a thought and cancelled the shadow following effect. In less than 0.5 seconds, Yilin reactivated the shadow following effect, but her body was shorter, and she flexibly moved from the ghost's sight. Blind spot went around behind the ghost. The evil ghost seemed to be completely aware of Yilin behind him, and bit into the place where Yilin deliberately left an after-image of sight. The structure of the retina is similar to that of humans. In Xiao Yi's eyes, he is an evil spirit who chooses and devours people, but Yilin does various little experiments in various ways. While analyzing in his mind, Yilin did not pause. With a flick of his wrist, blood jasmine was like the scythe of death, easily slicing through the evil ghost's neck. Hiss. A stream of black blood, like a small fountain, spurted into the air from the broken neck. It's truly spectacular. Not far away, Xiaoi saw this scene, her thin body trembled slightly, and she was so frightened that she stayed in place. The evil ghost's corpse slowly fell down, its ferocious face buried in the soil, and its limbs twitching. Xiao Yi looked at Yilin's back, her eyes full of shock, and stammered, "Sir, are you the legendary ghost hunter?" Yilin remained silent. He once again clenched the dark red dagger in his hand. Because. The fallen ghost stood up again. Immortal, immortal. Yilin savored the sentence again. In this world, in principle, there is no truly immortal existence. This is impossible. That's just right. Yilin took a breath, and the smile on her face became gentler. Then let's study it in depth. Xiaoi's expression was dull and she looked forward. Her steps were moving backwards involuntarily, little by little. Like trying to escape from this place. There was a drop of cold sweat on his forehead, slowly dripping down. It was only 10 minutes ago that the ghost had its throat cut and then got up again. But it felt to Xiaoi as if a whole day and night had passed. Are all ghost hunters so scary? Xiaoi murmured softly. She watched Yilin helplessly and tried various ways of killing ghosts. The ghost hunter was still lingering in her ears, and her tone was 3-part surprise, 3-part curiosity, 3-part admiration, and 1-part amusement. Yeah. The wound has actually healed. The brain doesn't seem to be an action center. It's still possible to move after destroying the brain. The eyeballs are damaged and they can still capture my position. It seems that the ghost is not a creature that relies solely on vision. Isn't the heart a weak point? Try a few more cuts and see. If the limb is not completely severed, is it possible to heal it? It's quite troublesome. Will the limbs grow back over time? This kind of monster is quite resistant to being beaten. In just a few minutes, Yilin used various methods to kill the man-eating evil spirit 64 times. Yilin, who is a little obsessed with numbers, originally wanted to kill 66 times. It is also good not to seek rounding up, but to seek auspiciousness. 66 is a great success. But he didn't expect that the ghost would lie on the ground and refuse to get up after being killed by Yilin 64 times. Originally, Yilin had not moved its legs for convenience, so that it could stand up more smoothly. The ghost in front of him originally had no intelligence. But for some reason, after being killed 64 times by the terrifying ghost hunter with a smile on his face, it unexpectedly developed an emotion called fear. It's very difficult for me to do this when you show such an expression. Yilin shook off the black blood on the short knife and hesitated whether to make 2 more cuts. You said you were so cruel, but Yilin didn't have any psychological burden at all when he acted cruelly. The ghost suddenly showed such a pitiful look, which gave Yilin the illusion that the roles of the 2 parties had been reversed. Behind Yilin, Xiaoai's eyes are getting redder and redder. It felt like I was about to cry at any moment. My legs were so frightened that I couldn't close them together and were trembling. This. Who is the ghost? Are ghost hunters so scary? Xiaoai retreated 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter. Move little by little. Right now. Xiaoai's eyes flashed. The thick fog was torn apart by a figure. There was a cold, hard touch on my neck. A blood-red short knife was pressed against his neck silently. Pressed into the tender meat of the neck. Hey, don't leave in a hurry, little, Yi. Yilin whispered into Xiao Yi's ear in a gentle tone. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 47. Master Ghost Hunter, what are you? Xiaoai swallowed timidly, her mouth was dry. A cold and stinging pain came from his neck, making Xiaoai motionless. It's not that I can't, but I don't dare. What do you think? Yilin squinted and smiled, her smile gentle, like the sunshine in the warm winter. But the knife in his hand pressed a little deeper into Xiaoai's skin. Black blood spread along the dagger's blood groove in a thick blood line, and finally dripped down the tip of the knife. Tick-tock, tick-tock. Xiaoai's thin body was stiff and stiff. Master Ghost Hunter. Xiaoai squeezed out a hint of crying. But the 10 fingers on her hands trembled slightly, and veins bulged silently on the backs of her palms under the coarse linen clothes. Nail. Skyrocketing. Laugh. Yilin suddenly pulled the knife from his hand without any warning. Blood splattered. But because of the angle, all the blood sprayed on the ground, and not a drop fell on Yilin's white clothes. Xiaoai's eyes were full of shock, and she staggered forward a few steps. He turned his head, with an expression on his face as if he had been struck by a ghost. This. How do you say that you have to go under the knife? Aren't you mentally prepared? And how could you be so cruel? Am I not cute enough? Are all ghost hunters so scary? Woo woo woo. The people from outside Giwu Mountain are so cruel. Xiaoai covered the wound on her neck but did not fall down. Her 2 piercing big eyes turned red instantly, revealing 2 strange bloody lights in the mist. Hiss. Xiaoai opened her mouth again, revealing several pointed fangs. Master Ghost Hunter, when did you find out? After a while, when the wound on Xiaoai's neck began to slowly heal, she was finally able to speak. Yilin shrugged with a calm expression, it's obvious. You said he was your father. After he recognized my identity as a ghost hunter, he didn't ask me to rescue your father immediately, but instead pulled me to escape. In this fog, I can't even see your face clearly from 10 meters away. How can you still tell the direction? But these are not important. Yilin grinned, but her eyes became colder. The most important thing is, your name is Xiaoai. Rub. Xiaoai's sharp claws on both hands swelled out, and she stretched out her scarlet tongue and licked it gently. Her red eyes looked even more enchanting in the thick fog. What's wrong with Xiaoai? Can't you just call me Xiaoai? She witnessed Yilin torture and kill a certain poor ghost 64 times, which left some shadows in her heart. But it doesn't matter, this guy just looks a bit cruel, violent. But it doesn't matter. Xiaoai is a ghost. He is just a ghost hunter who has not even mastered the ghost killing technique. It doesn't matter, he can't kill Xiaoai. The word cruel could not help but pop up in Xiaoai's mind. She struggled in her mind for a long time, and finally the idea of human beings cannot defeat ghosts took over. The distance between the two is only a few meters. Xiaoai's eyes showed a fierce light, and her sharp claws tore through the dense fog. A cold light flashed, and the dim light appeared in front of Yilin's eyes in the blink of an eye. Call out. In the blink of an eye, the sharp claw pierced through the center of Yilin's eyebrows. Xiaoai felt happy, but soon felt puzzled. Because the feeling on my fingertips was a bit wrong. There is no pleasure like tearing flesh and blood and cracking open the brain as imagined. Laugh. A short knife appeared silently from diagonally below and stabbed Xiaoai's jaw straight to the bottom. Shadows leave traces. Although there are many usage restrictions, for the same target, the first use has the best effect. After that, the naked eye will quickly adapt to this sudden change in sense of presence. Yilin directly passed Shui Jasmine through Xiao Yi's chin and nailed it to the ground. He had done an experiment on a poor ghost a few minutes ago. This kind of injury would not kill him. Yilin skillfully sat on Xiao Yi, pressing Xiao Yi's body, holding down Shui Moli with one hand, and pressing Xiao Yi's hands with her legs to prevent her from suddenly pulling out her claws. After restraining the brat, Yilin's smile faded and she asked word by word without any expression. Now, I ask, you just need to nod or shake your head a little, do you understand? A trace of hatred flashed in Xiao Yi's eyes, and she seemed to be trying to get up from under Yilin. In this case, Yilin suddenly looked into Xiao Yi's eyes and shouted, "Let the world feel pain from now on." Xiaoai. A certain kid looked confused and forgot to struggle for a moment. This. What kind of? Before she could react, a cold breath surged from her body, making Xiaoai shiver inexplicably. At the same time, countless horrific images appeared in her mind. Indescribable. This was a malice she had never felt before. If she had to describe it, she would rather be completely saved by the ghost hunter than face the inexplicable horror. Oh, it's actually a state of fear. After Yilin used the new skill Disaster Haunting, she kept observing Xiaoai's reaction. Seeing that Xiaoai had a look of horror on his face the moment he was hit by the skill, his whole body tensed up, his legs were tightly clamped, and he struggled wildly, as if he was undergoing some kind of torture in his mind. From this, Yilin roughly guessed the type of negative status Xiaoai randomly received. Think of it as testing out new skills. This is a new version of the ship, so naturally we need to study it carefully. Yilin was somewhat curious as to what kind of scene she saw in her state of fear. 5 seconds later, Xiaoai recovered from her state of fear. As a ghost, Xiaoai looked like a human being, covered in dense sweat, as if she had just been fished out of the water. Want to do it again? Yilin pressed the dagger and asked with a smile. When Xiaoai heard this, she was immediately frightened out of her wits and shook her head desperately. He even forgot that there was a knife stuck in his chin. The fierceness and ferocity at the beginning were no longer in those red eyes. Can you read my memory? Yilin asked. Xiaoai shook his head. Xiaoai, did you choose the name yourself? Xiaoai still shook her head. Oh, your mother took it from you. Xiaoai nodded desperately. Then he shook his head again. Yilin's hand holding down the dagger relaxed a little. Is it really just a coincidence? Still. The bad taste of it? Yilin slowly breathed a sigh of relief and calmed down. Xiao Ai was puzzled at this moment. From Yilin's questions, she tasted something not quite right. This cruel ghost hunter seems to have some objections to the name Xiao Ai. Is there another Xiao Yi who has a grudge against the brutal ghost hunter in front of him? What is the hatred and grudge? Such a cruel attack. Inexplicably, Xiao Ai actually hated the name Xiao Ai. Yilin has not yet triggered the plot mission. He was a little confused. Logically speaking, since he had been deep into the plot for so long, the mission should have been released long ago. The ghost killing technique mentioned by Xiao Ai and his identity as a ghost hunter seemed to be the key to this trial. Yilin's assigned identity in the plot seems to be a rookie ghost hunter who broke into Giwu Mountain and does not understand ghost killing skills. It seems so. Just as Yilin was holding the little girl down, she was thinking about the direction of the plot. A cold murderous intent suddenly came from behind Yilin. Please vote and collect. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 48. The moment Yilin felt the cold murderous intent behind her, the hairs all over her body stood up and her scalp went numb. It was like every cell in his body was sending a warning to Yilin. Without hesitation, Yilin leaned over Xiao Ai. Hiss. A breeze blew over Yilin's head. Countless shining silver threads were like a waterfall or a piece of flawless silk, almost grazing against Yilin's scalp. Each silver thread, as thin as hair, seemed to be alive. It formed a silver blade in mid-air, tearing through the thick fog and sweeping across the dead tree 10 meters in front of Yilin. The thick fog that was torn apart by silver threads split for 3 seconds before rejoining from all sides. Seeing this scene, Yilin couldn't stay where he was. He immediately pulled out the bloody jasmine from Xiao Ai's chin, rolled on the spot, and rolled several meters away. He stabilized his posture again and stood up. This look is incredible. Even Yilin, whose heart was calm, felt a slight tremor in her heart. In mid-air, there was a beautiful woman in red floating. At first glance, Yilin found it difficult to find adjectives to describe this woman's appearance. All words, in front of her, seemed to become eclipsed in an instant. The silver thread that tore through the thick fog just now turned out to be the silver-stranded white hair of the woman in red. The white hair seemed to be alive, slowly swimming around the woman in red. Under the white hair, there is a delicate and fair face with oval seeds. There is no flaw on the face, white as snow, without any blood. However, this kind of almost extreme whiteness is difficult to associate with words such as pale, sick. At a glance, the delicate face combined with the snow-white skin will give people a kind of should-be such sense comes. The woman in red slowly raised her head and opened her eyes. The pupils in her red eyes were also faintly white. Yilin could even clearly see that the white pupils were full of delicate textures. The woman in red is wearing a zaiyi that looks like an ancient wedding dress, and it looks so bright against her snow-white skin. Wow! Just when Yilin was in a stalemate with the woman in red in mid-air, a series of sounds suddenly came from behind. Yilin didn't dare to look back. But from the movement behind him, he could roughly guess what was going on. The place where the silver thread swept just now was probably those dead trees. After being avoided by Yilin, all those dead trees suffered. Red. White hair. Barefoot. A very beautiful picture. Time seems to have stopped passing in the surrounding area. Until. Mother. Xiao Ai got up from the ground and rushed towards the woman in red with tears streaming down her face. Mother. Yilin realized that this scary-looking female ghost turned out to be the little devil's mother. The young one is beaten and the old one is killed. What a bloody plot. Yilin's mouth twitched slightly. The woman in red slowly landed on the ground, her bare feet lightly tapping on the ground, as if she was floating like a fairy. Although the word was ironic, at least at this moment, the woman in red didn't really feel like a man-eating evil ghost to Yilin. On the contrary, She looks like a white-haired fairy who doesn't eat fireworks from the world. Mom. It's this ghost hunter who bullies me. Xiao Yi cried for about 10 seconds and finally remembered Yilin's existence. She pointed hard at the wound on her chin that hadn't had time to heal and complained to her mother without saying a word. The woman in red glanced at Yilin coldly. That long silver hair, automatic without wind. The surrounding thick fog was slowly forced back, revealing a brief moment of clarity. Yilin's pupils shrank slightly and she tightened her grip on the short knife. A layer of cold sweat couldn't help but drip on his forehead. Not because of fear. Rather, the ability of the female ghost in red made him feel somewhat familiar. It's like some kind of legendary ability. But how could that kind of ability appear in the 4th level trial? The 4th level is just a newcomer level. There should not be existences of this level. Ghost Hunter. The female ghost in red snorted softly, and murderous intent burst out from her white pupils. Yilin raised her head. He spoke as fast as possible and only said one sentence. Let the world feel pain from now on. Female ghost in red. Xiaoi. Yilin didn't take any chances in her heart. Since Yilin injured Xiaoi, her father-in-law came to her door. If Yilin didn't take action, the end would be disastrous. After a short evaluation, it is estimated that the current Yilin is hardly a match for the female ghost in red. For every level, there must be a strategy. Yilin already has some idea of the strategy for this trial. Ghost hunter and ghost killing are both key. But Yilin has not mastered the ghost killing technique yet. If I guess correctly, the depth of the plot should not be enough. Now Yilin can only think of a way to escape first. Disaster plagued, activate. Target, mother. No, it's the female ghost in red. At the moment when the disaster was activated, a hint of intoxicating confusion flashed through the cold eyes of the female ghost in red. A hint of seductive blush appeared on his face as white as snow. Yilin was slightly startled. Xiaoi was completely stunned. She originally thought that when Yilin said those incomprehensible words, her mother would have terrible hallucinations. But looking at my mother's expression now, she seems a little weird. Something is wrong. I saw the woman in red shyly stepping forward and bowing. I am Nai Hongxiu, and I have met officials. This is charming. Disaster-ridden and terrifying. But, if things go wrong in the follow-up, Yilin will die miserably. Very miserable. He no longer had enough spiritual energy to use disaster haunting again. Take Xiaoi and let's go as fast as possible. The further away the better. Yilin didn't change her expression and gave the order directly. But the officials. Nai Hongxiu, the female ghost in red, turned pale and bit her lower lip, with a hint of reluctance and tenderness in her eyes. Like poetry, like water. No, get out of here. The further away, the better. Yes, officer. Nai Hongxiu's pair of apricot tears were like a pool of spring water. Although she was unwilling in her heart, Nai Hongxiu still obeyed Yilin's orders and turned into a gust of wind, flying into the air with a confused Xiao Yi, and disappeared in front of Yilin in the blink of an eye. Without saying anything, Yilin quickly activated the shadow following state. To get out of here, the further away the better. When Nai Hongxiu recovers from the charm state, the consequences. It's simply unimaginable. Being targeted by a crazy female ghost is definitely a hell difficulty start. Generally speaking, the lasting effect of the charm state is longer than that of other negative states, but there is a certain gap in strength between the two. How long it can last, Yilin is not sure. We can only take advantage of now to leave this thick fog, the sooner the better. Before leaving, Yilin took a look back at the woods swept by silver threads. In the thick fog, it was not very clear. But Yilin could also tell that the area swept by the silver thread, nearly 20 meters away, was missing a lot of jagged and strange shapes, making it look a lot emptier. Yulin used the fastest speed to walk through the forest covered with thick fog. At this moment, Yulin stepped on something. It doesn't look like dirt. At the same time, a faint groan of pain came from below. Please vote and collect. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 49. Yulin looked down. He actually stepped on a wrinkled hand. Lying on the ground was a middle-aged man covered in blood. He was dressed in shabby clothes, with linen wrapped around his head. A piece of flesh had been eaten away from his right shoulder and right arm, making him look bloody and miserable. Yulin hesitated for a second. Weighing the pros and cons, I originally didn't plan to bother. After all, he is not the virgin. In the plot mode, the most taboo thing is to act without thinking. Everything must be thought about for 30 years before acting. Impulsiveness, madness, anger, and mindless licking of plot characters, these mindless actions will only make things worse. Yulin knew this very well. I also feel it deeply. When he was about to leave, the middle-aged man grabbed Yulin's ankle tightly. I don't know where this middle-aged man derived his strength, but his wrinkled palm was like an iron hoop. At this moment, a series of familiar announcements suddenly appeared in front of Yulin's eyes. Welcome to the 4th floor. Once upon a time, there was a ghostly mist mountain. In Ghost Mist Mountain, there are people and ghosts. Finally, 5 more young ghost hunters came from outside the Ghost Mist Mountain and crossed the Ghost Mist. Wearing their own ghost-slaying swords, they killed the ghosts and brought a faint glimmer of light to Ghost Mountain. This is the legendary Ghost Mist Mountain. It's dark, please close the door. Main mission, kill the Ghost King. Mission failed, all wiped out. Yulin remained silent. Carefully ponder the plot hints that appear in front of you. Memorize it word for word, sentence by sentence, exactly. Guard against. There is a pit. As for the cruel punishment for failure, Yulin ignored it. Anyway, I'm used to it. Erase them all. Everyone does this. Young ghost hunter, save me, save me. Yulin frowned. This plot hint was triggered after the middle-aged man grabbed Yulin's ankle. In other words, Yulin lowered his head and said in a deep voice, "Can you get out of this fog?" Ahem. The dying middle-aged man coughed twice, and said slowly, "Master Ghost Hunter, I am one of the most experienced hunters in the village. In this forest, I have left marks on every tree. Can you, or can't you?" Yulin shouted in a low voice without giving the middle-aged man any time to talk nonsense. Able. Good. Yulin didn't waste any time and directly picked up the middle-aged man from the ground and carried him behind his back. To Yulin's surprise, the middle-aged man was much lighter than he looked, and his skin was slightly cold. Yulin carried him behind his back without feeling any effort at all. Guide the way. The middle-aged man lay panting behind Yulin, squinting his eyes, as if distinguishing the difference between each dead tree through the thick fog, and then lowered his head again, looking at the ground. His nose twitched slightly. Master Ghost Hunter, go this way. The middle-aged man seemed to be quite capable, and he quickly pointed out a way for Yulin in the thick fog. Although Yulin was not 100% sure whether the middle-aged hunter who was almost eaten by a ghost could find the correct route through the foggy forest. But Yulin knew that this middle-aged man should be the biggest reminder in this start. Although the plot mode is unpredictable, depending on the behavior of the apostles, as the depth of the plot continues to be explored, there will be different endings and different difficulties. But no matter how unpredictable it is, there are always traces to follow. In story mode, there is no absolute dead end. Yulin made her current choice through calculation and speculation. Yeah, quack dash. Right now. In thick fog. In the woods behind Yulin, countless black crows were frightened and fled in all directions. There were bursts of shrill crows that resounded through the forest. Driving through the thick fog. It's Nai Hungziu. Sudden. After countless crows were startled, a shrill scream came from that direction. Yulin subconsciously covered her ears, but because she was carrying the hunter, Yulin only had time to cover one side. The neighing sound was like an infrasound wave, causing Yulin's eardrums to ache and buzz. At this time, a cry of pain came from his back. The middle-aged hunter's brows were furrowed and his face was pale. 2 lines of blood slowly flowed from his ears and dripped along his temples. That female ghost in red must be mad. The murderous intention coming from behind almost turned into reality, and every inch of Yulin's skin felt a dense sting at the same time. In that roar, there was 1 part anger, 2 parts emotional explosion, and 1 part shame. Of course, Yulin's mental attributes are not high enough to analyze the female ghost's emotions through a large forest. But based on the reaction of Nai Hungziu, the female ghost in red, and what she did in the charmed state, after Yulin's reasonable speculation and brainstorming, she can guess that it is almost the same. It's a ghost. It's a ghost. It's a ghost. The middle-aged hunter on his back was so frightened that his teeth chattered and rattled. Yulin could even feel the middle-aged hunter behind him trembling all over. How long until we can get out of the woods? Yulin glanced at the psychic value with an expressionless face and asked in a low voice. 1 mile, back to the ghost hunter, we can get out of the forest in 1 mile. When the middle-aged hunter heard this, he suddenly remembered something. The despair in his eyes faded a bit, and he quickly said, Master Ghost Hunter, as long as we can walk out of the forest. Ghosts cannot leave the foggy forest during the day. As long as we can walk out of the forest, we will. There's help. Is this a setting where ghosts can't bask in the sun? Yulin quickly read the key information from the middle-aged hunter's words. 1 mile. Yulin made quick calculations in her mind, but her pace quickened a bit, carrying the light middle-aged hunter on her back, quickly walking through the forest. The tingling sensation coming from the skin of the body is getting stronger and stronger, which means, Nai Hungziu is approaching quickly. The murderous intention comes from behind. 300 meters. 200 meters. 100 meters. A ray of sunshine faintly penetrated the fog in front of me, and the front was getting brighter and brighter. Behind Yulin, Nai Hungziu's voice came faintly through the thick fog. Officer, please stay. That lazy and charming voice seemed to have endless charm, and a strange voice suddenly sounded in Yulin's mind. Countless charming scenes also appeared in my mind. Fair skin. Exquisite jade feet. That soft silver hair. Ah! Behind it lies the gentle countryside. Just look back. Just take a look back. Just a glance. Yulin bit her tongue fiercely. His whole body trembled, and the voice in his mind that kept tempting Yulin to look back instantly dissipated without a trace. At this moment, Yulin successfully broke out of the thick fog. When we stepped out of the thick fog, the sunlight falling on our face seemed a bit dazzling. At the same time, the cold murderous intent behind him seemed to be completely isolated in the thick fog, and the uncomfortable needle-pricking feeling on his skin disappeared completely like the tide. In front of me is a country road. The path is paved with gravels of varying sizes and is surrounded by weeds. To be on the safe side, Yulin did not stop after running out of the foggy forest. She ran along the gravel road for several hundred meters. Only after the cold murderous intention behind her completely disappeared did she stop to take a breath. At this time, Yulin slowly turned around. A few hundred meters away was a forest of dead trees shrouded in mist. Deep in the mist, 2 figures, one tall and one short, flashed past. The 4-point deep red light seemed to be staring at Yulin through the thick fog. But soon, the 4 red lights gradually disappeared into the thick fog and disappeared completely. Have they gone? Yulin breathed a sigh of relief. He was still carrying the middle-aged hunter on his back. Uncle, how to get to your village? Yulin asked casually. But there was no response from behind. Every collection, every comment, and every vote of yours determines the future performance of this book. Ziobai, thank you all, grandpas. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 50. I don't know when it started, but the middle-aged hunter didn't make any movement. Uncle? Yulin asked again. Still no response. I don't know when it started. The hunter's body was cold and he had already lost his breath. When I put it down and took a look, I found that the middle-aged hunter actually kept his head turned and had a strange expression on his face. It seems like smiling but not laughing, like crying but not crying. He just died upright. He died on Yulin's back. I don't know what the middle-aged hunter saw when he looked back before he died. Was it because you were scared to death? Or die in a sweet dream? Yulin is also unknown. Yulin lowered his head and stared at the middle-aged hunter's body, his expression a little more solemn. Could it be? How could such a creature appear in a trial on the 4th floor? Could it be that she is the Ghost King? Yulin shook his head. The abilities displayed by the female ghost in red were mysterious and unpredictable. Although Yulin had some guesses in her mind, she was still unable to make a conclusion due to insufficient information. It's a pity that I was distracted by that voice at that time, otherwise I could have reminded you not to look back. Yulin sighed softly and observed a few seconds of silence for the middle-aged hunter. After standing there and thinking for a moment, she picked up the middle-aged hunter's body again and walked forward along the gravel road. After walking out of the dense forest, the view is much wider. Although there is still a light layer of fog in the air, it is nothing compared to the concentration of fog in the dead woods. Looking into the distance, there were a few wisps of light smoke floating along the gravel road. Yulin roughly estimated that the location of those few wisps of smoke was not far from here. Looking further, a strange-shaped mountain peak stood under the clouds, looking somewhat lonely. Yulin squinted her eyes and looked at the mountain peak. Looking more closely, it actually looks like a skull. The eyes of the skull are dark. I don't know if they are 2 caves or 2 shadows. Yulin is too far away and can't see clearly. Yulin stared at it for a long time, feeling inexplicably like being stared at by the skull, which made people's hair stand on end. In the blink of an eye, the feeling disappeared without a trace, like an illusion. Hey! It smells a little bit. Is that Kiwu Mountain? After entering the other world, every scene is weird. But Yulin couldn't help but laugh. Interesting. Yulin walked toward the crowd in the distance while pondering the plot hints that appeared in front of her not long ago. Along the way, among the weeds, there are many deserted graves scattered here and there, and the graves are also covered with weeds. Most barren tombs only have a broken wooden board. The writing on the wooden board has long been mottled and difficult to read due to exposure to the sun and rain. Some are covered with moss, and some have long since decayed. Some graves don't even have simple tombstones. They are just bare graves. From time to time, crows land on the graves and scream. The hoarse crows sound like mourning at first. About half an hour later, Yulin carried the hunter's body on her back and finally arrived at where Qingyan was. This is a small village. There is a stone tablet erected at the village gate. The stone tablet looks to be of a certain age, and the handwriting is blurry. Only the last 2 words can be vaguely discerned. Shadow Village. The entire village was surrounded by a mud wall about a person's height. There were a few wisps of light smoke floating from the village. The location Yulin identified from a distance should be here. It was correct. At the gate of the village, there sat a little boy with a yellow face and thin muscles. The boy was listless, with his head drooped and chewing a wrinkled piece of grass in his mouth. Yilin carried the middle-aged hunter on her back and approached the village step by step. The whole village gave people a lifeless feeling. Crows were squatting on the roofs of mud and stone houses, their heads were surging, and the ground was filled with darkness. Except for the little boy at the entrance of the village, Yilin didn't see any other villagers. The little boy raised his head and glanced at Yilin, then lowered his head again. Continue to chew the grass in your mouth. It seems to be quite tasty. Yilin put down the body on his back, smiled slightly, and asked, "Look, is this someone from your village?" The little boy then raised his head again, his eyes falling on the middle-aged hunter's face with a strange expression remaining. After a moment, the little boy nodded blankly. "It's Zhang Orion, is he asleep?" "No, he's dead." When the little boy heard this, his dull expression changed slightly, and he stayed there for a few seconds before reacting. "Zhang Orion is dead?" "Yes, dead." The little boy suddenly jumped up from the ground and ran towards the village, shouting, "It's not good! It's not good! Zhang Orion is dead too! It's not good! It's not good! Zhang Orion is dead too!" Hearing the little boy's cry, there was no movement in the village. Half a minute later, a door opened with a creak, and a trembling old man walked out. The little boy shouted in a circle near the entrance of the village as if in mourning, and then suddenly circled back to the entrance of the village. He stared at Yilin. To be precise, he should be staring at the black robe on Yilin. "Are you, a ghost hunter?" Yilin smiled slightly and nodded, "That's right." Hearing this, the little boy suddenly grinned. Power surged out of his skinny little body from nowhere, and he ran into the village faster than just now. "Great! Great! Another ghost hunter is here! Another ghost hunter is here! Great! Great! Another ghost hunter is here! Another ghost hunter is here! Great! Great! Another ghost hunter is here! Another ghost hunter is here!" The child reported the news of Zhang Orion's death twice. "But the ghost hunter," the kid shouted 3 times. "Is it really important to say it 3 times?" That formation reminded Yilin of a word. It is a joy to hear and see, and it is very pleasing to the people. The whole world celebrates and runs to tell each other. Abbreviation. Super plus enjoy. Yilin was a little curious. How did this kid cry for Zhang Orion 1 second, and then be so happy the next? Etc. Yilin spoke to the little boy twice, savoring it a little carefully. "He died too, here he comes again." And this lifeless village seemed to suddenly come to life after hearing the 3 words ghost hunter. Inside the dark room, a fire was burning in the center. On the fire hung a pitted iron pot. In the iron pot, a pot of green wild vegetable soup is boiling. Steam is constantly coming out of the pot, exuding a strange smell. 2 men, 1 woman, and an old man. The 4 of them sat on the 4 corners of the iron pot and sat on the floor, looking at each other. The old man with gray hair looks haggard and has a sallow complexion. He moved his lips several times and looked at the other 3 people, as if he wanted to say something. But the 3 young ghost hunters in front of him seemed to be secretly exchanging sparks. The weird atmosphere made it extremely difficult for him to even open his mouth to speak. Many villagers lay eagerly outside the window, looking at the scene inside the house through the windows. It was broad daylight, but the light inside the house was dim, but that was because the windows were crowded with people. Yilin suddenly laughed. He picked up the simple earthenware bowl in front of him, and there was a hole in it. Yilin didn't care, spooned out a bowl of steaming wild vegetable soup, and took a sip in front of the other 3 people. Gugu. A handsome-looking man. A girl with long hair shawl. With a quick glance, his eyes focused on Yilin. Yilin blew into the bowl, smiled at the 2 of them, and said in a gentle tone, "It tastes good, but it's just a bit bland. Do you want to try it too?" Stay up late to update, Please vote and collect. Played.